This refugee crisis hasn't happened in Europe on this scale since World War II. And the pace of the crisis in Ukraine shifted very quickly. In 2015, the refugee crisis, when Syrians and Afghans were fleeing conflicts and coming into Europe, it took 3 months to reach the 1 million mark. This reached the 1 million mark in a week. I'm Zein, Basravi, Aljazeera's correspondent in Eastern Poland, and between us, this refugee crisis is on a scale that I've never seen before. In this conflict, the level of violence perpetrated by the Russian military as part of the invasion force ratcheted up very quickly, and it surprised everyone. When the strikes on Kyiv began, everybody started getting out. And so that created a bottleneck that took days to pass through. That's gotten much better. The times at the borders are being measured in hours, not in kilometers anymore. A lot of warehouses have been opened up for big groups of people. They're sleeping in cots. There's no privacy. There's hundreds and hundreds of people to a room. So it's still pretty dire, but at least they're not outside in the cold, waiting to cross over like they were in the early days. One of the most heart-wrenching cases was a father from Kharkiv who was dropping off his family and then going back to Kharkiv.
Нас бомбят русские, мы все боимся. Причем мы?
That is a city that Russia's military campaign has almost completely leveled. It's difficult to sort of listen to the people sort of tell their stories and talk about saying goodbye. That was definitely one that had us all wiping away some tears during the interview and during the edit. That's definitely a time when the producers, the cameraman, it's difficult to sort of have to go through the process again. We'd crossed into Ukraine, into one of the border towns there at the Ukrainian side of the border control. There was a family with a woman on her knees begging a passport control officer to let her husband go through, who was just shy of 60. They were all screaming and sobbing. The husband was crying as well, but trying to console his family, knowing that he would have to go back and they'd have to go on without him because of the conscription rules. And their son, who couldn't have been more than like 7, 8, or 9, just started shrieking and screaming. Now, he wasn't old enough probably to understand everything that was happening, but he was old enough to understand that if this woman at passport control didn't let her father through, that meant his life was immediately in danger. Fear that propelled them to run for their lives is now very quickly turning to anger. The hope is switching from desperately seeking humanitarian relief and escape to desperately seeking more military capacity to keep fighting the Russians. The women and children are leaving to save the future. The men are staying behind to make sure they have a country to come back to. The hope is to get kids to safety and to stabilize their day-to-day lives somehow, but there's also a parallel hope of being able to have the capacity they need to keep fighting and eventually push Russia back.